Stress can affect the body in a magnitude of ways, and it comes from every direction. You know, it's usually just the tip of the iceberg that we see, but under the water, there's usually a big body of stress that's coming from the pressures we put on ourselves, life, work, our history, family. There's so many, body image, so many things that lead to that stress. And then you can get to an event and it can feel like you're at that tipping point. When the body is exposed to chronic stress, it can have a number of negative effects on the cardiovascular system, on your weight. You actually increase weight. You become insulin resistant, and your body tends to store a bit more fat around that stomach and midsection, so that can really affect performance. You have changes in appetite as well. So sometimes you might have a suppressed appetite or an increase in appetite. And typically when you have an increase, you go for comfort foods, things that are going to give you that dopamine hit, that feel-good hit, because you're needing that. So you're going to eat more junk, chocolates and fats, and things that aren't going to really necessarily help you perform well and feel good. Stress is also going to affect sleep. If you're not sleeping well, then it's going to be hard to be switched on for a training session and then work, or for a race. And so you can change your sleep cycles. I think if you've woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you just felt super awake and buzzing, that's usually an increase in cortisol, can indicate there's a bit of stress in your body, and stress throughout the day that's presenting itself hormonally during the night. Muscle tension, when you're stressed, you tense. It might be your shoulders are elevated. You might be pressing your teeth together. And so you have jaw stress, and that's going to affect your overall energy, and can lead to headaches, and that's going to affect performance as well. Mental fatigue, if you're feeling really stressed, it's draining, and you might feel like you can't regulate your emotions as well. So you might have more difficulty saying no to junk food or a bad food option. You might be more snappy. In a race, you might be more emotional. So if someone says, pull a turn, you might snap at them, or be more aggressive in a race, which can be a good thing if you're planning and intentionally, being dominant. But if you're just reactive and creating danger to yourself and others, it's not so good. Or if you're just trying to attack the peloton at a bad time because you're frustrated, that's part of that stress response and that inability to regulate. So it's really important to have a control of your emotions, and stress can affect that. So that, decision making and race reading, as well as it can lead to depression and anxiety. It's having those hormones and being in that hypervigilant state of fight, flight, freeze is tiring, and so long term, it's not very sustainable and adapted way to sort of function.
So, how would you go about fixing it?
Well, that's a good question. It's obviously a hard thing, and there's a number of things you can do. The first is to bring awareness around the stress. So I kind of use this hand model. We spoke a little bit about the amygdala, the lizard brain, the old brain. So that's kind of that detects our fear and kind of reacts, and it's there to protect us. It's useful. But then we have the new brain, which wraps around it and says, no, you're okay. You don't need to be stressed, or, it's the appraisal of the situation and how to act with that energy. And so when we're super stressed, this happens. It's just the amygdala just explodes out, and we kind of just out of control. So noticing what triggers that. What is triggering that throughout the day? Is it that you saw all these emails and that stressed you out? Or is it the belief that you're not going to race well? What is it that causes this? So working that out, and then how to respond. So just one exercise is to notice this. Oh, I'm noticing I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tense. And then to bring myself back into the moment, I notice my senses. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing a desk, I'm seeing my computer, I'm seeing you. What am I tasting? I cleaned my teeth before I came, so I'm tasting that. What am I feeling? I'm feeling this chair underneath me. I'm feeling a bit of breeze on my face. What am I hearing? A bit of traffic, a little bit of a buzz from the fan. And what am I smelling? There's not a lot of smells here, but just doing that alone can reduce stress. So that's one example. Other ways are changing lifestyle. So seeing what you can change in your life to reduce your stress. It can be slowing down before bed. Setting up a sleep routine can reduce stress, it can be creating more automatic routines and rituals. So when we don't have to think about things, it's easier. So if I know on a Monday morning I do my ride, that's going to reduce stress because I know that's happening. Creating a calendar, scheduling my time, so I'm not all of a sudden overwhelmed at 5 p.m. when I haven't done all these tasks I wanted to do. So scheduling time and being realistic with that as well. You can do muscle relaxation, meditation, making time to relax and have a bath, whatever that might be, a cup of tea. Also, a really useful one for reducing stress is actually learning to say no, boundaries. I'm a yes person. I want to do everything, and that can get me into trouble and stress me out. So learning to say, no, I don't have time for that. And that might be to myself. It might be to someone, my partner, my boss, or it might be to myself. No, George, you don't have time for a surf. That's going to stress you out later. So learning to say no is also really important.
So being realistic with your time, I feel like that's something a lot of people don't have that much respect for. They're like, oh, I'll just do it later. They keep putting things off.
I think, if you can set aside at the start of the week on a Sunday night or create a routine for this, where you have a cup of tea and you plan your week, when I'm going to train, when I'm going to work. And that's what people typically do. They put in when they're going to do these goals, but you've also got to put in the things that you forget about. So I like to leave, a few hours for the things that are going to come up. Your car's going to be out of petrol. That's going to take longer than you think. You're going to need time to just sit and relax. Because when we schedule our calendar, it's almost, you think you're Superwoman or Superman, and you put all this stuff in, and then you don't get that done. And everything's behind. And then you're like, oh, forget it. I'm done. So really being realistic and learning those little mistakes that you make along the way. You can use apps. There's apps on phones. You can use a physical calendar. Put it on your fridge. Tell people about it. Tell them what you're going to do that day. And add time be generous with your time. It's better to have more time left over than not enough. And you might realize that you have too many goals. It's not possible for you to train 20 hours a week and have time with your family and do your job. And so that's where you need to move things around in your life and see how you can either change your goals or change your life to make it all work together. So you aren't feeling defeated. So you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, setting yourself up for success. That's a good way to put it. I know I've been like one of these people in the past where I'm just going to train 30 hours a week and I'm just going to smash through it, and I'm also going to have to work and I'll just get it done. But it doesn't last that long. I think I did that for like a week and then blew up.
I think I remember seeing that on Strava that week. Yeah, so you had a moment of feeling really motivated and excited, and that's great and that's beautiful. And we want to make that. You can draw that out by setting yourself some boundaries, that it sounds like. So I'm so excited. I want to do 30 hours. But then it's like, okay, but is that going to be sustainable? We want it to be sustainable because I want you to be fit all year round, or at least, 8 months of the year. We need to have an off season. So making sure you set yourself boundaries, and that might be not training for as long as you want 1 week, but then it means you're going to have energy the next week to train, and being realistic with the amount of work you can do and the effects that's going to have on you. It's going to make you a little more tired. So being mindful of that and planning around that as well.
What other tools would you recommend using to nullify the effects of stress or to work with it?
Well, there's so many.
Because we've talked about prioritizing your time already, like mapping out your week. Let's say you're already stressed. How do you fix that? So you've already gone past the point, or this is like before a key event, you're stressed out. What are some tools you could use?
Right before an event? The important thing about coaching is that you want to practice things before you get to that point of absolute overwhelmment, because it's very hard to learn new skills when you're overwhelmed. So ideally, that's why you see someone before you get to this breaking point. But if you're in the moment and you're just feeling super overwhelmed, bring yourself back to a mantra. For example, you could say something like, I am relaxed, I am strong, and I'm ready to go. If you notice your heart's beating fast, it can be, we can have high blood pressure and a racing heart under stress. You can say, oh, my body's excited. I'm getting revved up. And from the gun, I'm going to feel fast. I'm already there. I'm ready to go. I'm so excited. There's so much energy. So that's reframing. Being mindful, just literally noticing the wind on your face or what you're hearing. So bringing your attention to a thought anchor instead of, I'm so stressed, this race is going to go bad. What if I don't do well? Those are the thoughts we can get stuck in and sort of spiral in. You can say, oh, I'm noticing the wind on my face. the sun is quite warm. So just noticing what's happening around you outside of those sort of anxiety-provoking thoughts. The breath is great. You can count 4 breaths. Count your breaths. Count the seconds. So you can do the box breathing that I think I've spoken about before, which is 4 seconds inhale, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds exhale, 4 seconds hold. That's going to take your mind off those thoughts and onto something else and help you kind of bring that arousal down. Distraction is also great. If you're just feeling overwhelmed, this distraction can be used temporarily. Of course, you don't want to always live with distraction. However, you can play some music, play something that makes you feel good. Look at a picture of someone who motivates you and makes you feel excited and happy, or look at your pet, whatever it might be. Go and chat with someone at a race, something to take your mind off things. Another thing is to be aware of your posture. If I'm nervous, you see people doing this at races, they're playing with their fingers or constantly changing their bike. This is just this anxious energy. Really try and lean into your power. So I get anxious, I get excited, but I try and be calm, I try and be happy, have a soft smile and walk with confidence. I might be faking that at a race, but fake it till you make it. So that actually, this research shows that body language can change emotion. So I can use my body to change how I feel. So I'm going to bring my shoulders back. I'm going to walk like I'm going to win this race. And that's going to help me feel more confident and reduce my stress.